Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk back in the video today, and I'm going to be doing my Texans mock draft 2.0 as I did my Texans mock draft 1.0 last week, and or no, it was like 10 days ago, and I kind of went over some just the first round. I just went over what I thought the Texans should do in the first round when it came to what they should pick and who they should pick. But now I've done some, research about, who what the not only would I know what the Texans need, but I've done some research on some players, some different players that I've looked at that I think would be good for us, and I've built gone further deeper. We're going to be going further deeper into the draft for the Texans in this mock draft. Last time only did the first round. Now we're going to go. I think where I'm going is third round, all the way to the third round, where the Texans select in the 75 area. So that's third round, if I'm not mistaken. That's third round. And so yeah, so that's 4 picks though. So yeah, let's get into it. And it starts with the number 2 overall pick. I have nothing changing here. I still have the Texans drafting Bryce Young. If you watched my video last week, I had the Texans selecting Bryce Young as long as no one trades for that number 1 overall pick, which, in my opinion, if someone's trading for the first overall pick, I think they could select C.J. Stroud. And, I think the only team I think that will be interested in trading for the first overall pick is the Panthers. And I think that if the Panthers trade for the first overall pick, I think they're selecting C.J. Stroud. And to be honest with you guys as well, I wouldn't mind if the Panthers select the first overall pick, and if they trade for the first overall pick. And here's why. Because then if the Panthers have the first overall pick, they're probably going to pick C.J. Stroud. Texans still get Bryce Young. Even if the Panthers select Bryce Young, Texans still get C.J. Stroud. Guess who's now away from a talented quarterback? The Indianapolis Colts. Yeah, the Colts would probably then stick with Will Levis from Kentucky, but it's not as big of a problem as dealing with either C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young, whoever you're dealing with from the Colts, because you got to face the Colts twice a year. So if the Panthers select up and go up and trade up and select C.J. Stroud, that's not a bad thing for us. That's a good thing because we still get a quarterback, whether it's Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud, either one. And the Colts have been taken away from talent. That's a team that we're competing with in the AFC South. Yes, do the Colts still go to quarterback, but not as much as talented as C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young is compared to Will Levis. So I think that would be a really good thing for the Houston Texans. But I still think if the Panthers trade up, I still think the Texans will get Bryce Young, because I think if this is a big if, but if the Panthers were to trade up, I do think that we would see the Panthers select C.J. Stroud. But so yeah, I got the Texans selecting Bryce Young with number 2. Then going to our 12th overall pick that we received from the Cleveland Browns in the Deshaun Watson trade. Last week before I did my mock draft, I had the Texans selecting Quentin Johnson, wide receiver from TCU. And this is no reason. I'm not doing this because he played so bad in the national championship, because I think he has some potential in the NFL. But I think the Texans, you draft a quarterback, you have to protect him. The Texans were sacked 36 times this year, and Davis Mills just looked like he had no O-line. And the worst thing about it is the Texans apparently have the best left tackle in the NFL, which is funny to me because, the Texans were sacked so many times this year, fumbled so much. It seems the only thing the Texans were actually really good at this year was run blocking with their offensive line. So they need to bring in a new O-lineman, and it starts with the first round. And I have the Houston Texans selecting with the 12th overall pick, Paris Johnson Jr. From Georgia. Or no, not Georgia. Where is he from? Oh, no. Is he from Georgia? No, that was Broderick Jones. He's from somewhere. I can't think about where he's from. It's not Georgia. I don't know. That was Broderick Jones, who I was also looking at. But who's who is he from? I'm not gonna be able to get it. And then getting to my the third pick, that is the 34th overall pick in the second round. But I want you guys to think about this. NFL, how do you say this? NFL insiders or people that work deep in the NFL, and when the NFL draft is on, they always say the first 5 picks of that second round is basically first round talent, right? If you usually through the first 5 to 10 picks, you can find first round talent in the second round. And I think the Texans, they're basically selecting, this is basically another first round pick, because I want you to think about this. The Texans going in second, think about the second overall pick in the second round. But the team that has the first overall pick in the second round, the Steelers, are basically selecting with the first round pick, because there is a first round pick in the first round with the Miami Dolphins at 21 or 22 that has been forfeited because they lost a draft pick. So basically, the Steelers have a first round pick because of what's happened with the Dolphins and a pick being forfeited. So in that chance, the Texans have the 33rd overall pick. It says 34, but they have the 33rd overall pick in the draft. So after all that, what do the Texans need? Now, I did say that I had the Texans selecting Quentin Johnson. But Quentin Johnson, he's going to be gone. And why not get somebody who I think could be even better than that, in Jalen Hyatt from Tennessee? I think this kid has some really big potential. Someone who's just stomped on his future quarterback, and Bryce Young earlier in the season had a record 5 touchdowns for Tennessee in that huge game against Alabama. Had an amazing game, had a great season too, 15 touchdowns, so many receiving yards for Jalen Hyatt. I think he has so much potential with his deep ball. And I just think that he can be our number one. And Bryce Young going into Houston, not only having Jalen Hyatt, but having his former number one wide receiver from Alabama, John Mechie. So I think that Jalen Hyatt and John Mechie, and plus Nico Collins, who's not bad himself, would be a great wide receiver trio for Bryce Young going into his rookie season. Yes, you have 3 really young wide receivers in Collins, Hyatt, and Mechie, but I think that would be the man. I think that's the move, guys. But yeah, so getting into my next pick with the 60. Wait, that's the next pick is the 62nd, or it's the 60th pick in the, it's the 60th. It's the 60th pick in the no, it's the 60, I don't know, it's the 60th or the 61 or 62 or something like that. And I have the Houston Texans selecting Chris Harris, the second safety from Georgia, who had a great, man. This man had a great season. 61 tackles, 3 interceptions. I think he can be really good for this Texans safety core. The Texans do need to add in another safety to help Jalen Petrie, because I think the Texans just, I like Jonathan Owens, but I just don't think he's the starting guy for us, and I think Chris could be a really good Texans, and I think that he's the definitely potential. 3 interceptions. It's kind of putting out Jalen Petrie numbers with how many interceptions Jalen Petrie had this season. I think that could be the move for the Houston Texans there. Definitely think at some point in this draft, the Texans have to draft a safety, a second safety, and I think that would be the spot for the Houston Texans. And then in my last pick, with the 79th overall pick, I have the Houston Texans selecting Zach Harrison from Ohio State, who had a good season this year, 34 tackles, defensive end, by the way, 34 tackles, 3.5 sacks. Was it what? I think one interception. And I think the Texans need to add in a defensive end in this draft. I think they need some help defending the run, and that could be a good way to start. But yeah, that's really it. I don't have any other access to any of the Texans' other picks in this draft. So once we know the full order of the Texans draft picks, I will do a full Houston Texans mock draft. But for right now, that's what I have the Houston Texans doing in the draft. Let me know what you guys think about the Texans possibly selecting Bryce Young, Paris Johnson, and Jalen Hyatt, and Chris Harris II. That's it for the video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and let me know your thoughts, and peace out. Go Texans.